I started off in mental health as a patient and went into the Army system and then the VA system and was just handed drug after drug and told that this was my life now. All of those selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors really turned my whole world gray, and it made me want to kill myself along with all of the trauma that happened. And it was actually like these treatments that we offer at our clinic that saved my life and got me on the right track. And the whole reason that I'm here doing this is not just because of me, but it was because of several friends and a mentor that I lost to suicide. And it really made me angry that we're not treating these things more effectively. So we started the clinic because of that. And, we've been treating veterans and first responders for 3.5 years now.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and turn them into cash-based multimillionaire entrepreneurs. Warning, if you're a doctor who listens to this podcast regularly, you will make millions of dollars. Do not listen to this podcast unless you want to be a successful clinic owner who helps thousands of patients achieve their health goals and adds more money than you can imagine to your bank account. You've been warned.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and we turn them into super clinic owners. I'm one of your hosts, Jennifer Gligoric, and today you'll be here with me and former Army bomb technician and combat veteran. After multiple tours in Afghanistan, he nearly lost his life to PTSD. And that experience set him on a mission to transform mental health care, particularly for veterans and first responders who are suffering with trauma, TBI, and depression. He's an entrepreneur, and he is the founder of Mind Spa, Patriot Power Up, the nonprofit Invictus Project. So please let us give a huge welcome to Sam Peterson to the show today. Welcome, Sam.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jen. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's really exciting to have you. You've had a pretty interesting, thing from going to the Army and now going into entrepreneurship. So can you tell me what it was like going through that, but also too diving from, it's stress, but a completely different type of stress. So you've went through this life-changing stress, but now you have like a completely different type of stress. So what made you decide to make that shift? And tell us a little bit about that big journey that I talked about.
Yeah. So, I obviously I started off in mental health as a patient and went into the Army system and then the VA system and was just handed drug after drug and told that this was my life now. All of those selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors really turned my whole world gray, and it made me, want to kill myself along with, all of the trauma that happened. And it was actually like these treatments that we offer at our clinic that saved my life and got me on the right track. And the whole reason that I'm here doing this is not just because of me, but it was because of several friends and a mentor that I lost to suicide. And it really made me angry that we're not treating these things more effectively. So we started the clinic because of that. And, we've been treating veterans and first responders for 3.5 years now.
When you say we, who is the we that started with you?
Yeah, so we have a clinical team. So it's myself and my co-founder, Dr. Ron Schwenkler, and then we have psychiatrists and psychiatric nurse practitioners on our staff.
Okay. And what was that like when you finally decided, I'm not going to be a patient, I'm going to be proactive and make a change? Because I feel like a lot of our clinic owners, went through similar things. I can tell you for chiropractors, I don't know of many chiropractors that did not have a chiropractic experience, meaning they had went through the broken healthcare system. They finally got into chiropractic and they were like, oh, wow. Like they went through it. And then they were like you, they decided that this is what I'm going to do because it transformed my life. But at the same time, it's very, for some people, it's very different, than what they thought their path was going to be. Tell me a little bit about was it just the anger that propelled you to make that decision, or who did you sit down with? Was, when you said a mentor, what was your process before you opened up shop?
Well, it was a mentor of mine that killed themselves. I was the last guy to talk to him at the unit. before he went out in his backyard on Memorial Day. It was about 8 years ago and shot himself in the head with his 3-year-old son in the house. I
Oh
didn't
my
sit down with
goodness.
anybody. This was a matter of going through these treatments, so ketamine, hyperbaric, and then eventually transcranial magnetic stimulation, and coming out the other side and going, "Oh my God, I finally do feel better." So very similar to, the chiropractors that you're talking about, having that experience and going, "Oh, this isn't something that's within inside the medical system." First of all, that's wrong. And second of all, it's been kind of a pain in the ass to go around to all of these different places to get all these treatments that really work synergistically together. So it was just a matter of taking the leap. And I have to say, it's you mentioned the difference in stress. And I have to say, after being a bomb tech and being deployed to a combat zone 3 different times, running a business is harder and more stressful than dealing with bombs. Hands
Really?
down. Absolutely.
Okay, well now
Um,
I don't feel so bad for being stressed because I was like, man, if this guy can handle, I need to stop being so whiny, right?
you,
Because
you just
it
have
is
to.
hard.
Yeah, well, you just have to get over the whole like dying part. Once you get over that and you're just like, hey, it's going to be over. And it's either I get it right the first time or very, 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 very quickly, it's no longer my problem. There's some solace in that. And the nice thing about dealing with explosives, and
Ugh.
this is going to be a little morbid, but the nice thing about dealing with explosives is that the blast waves propagate so fast within most explosives that it'll kill you before you can even feel any pain. So it's like the nicest way to die.
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Like I would be ridiculous. I would be ridiculous in that sort of fear. I say that, but I guess you don't know if you're trained in it. What made you decide to do that, or did you just get thrown into that position? I'm curious. Before we move on to
Oh,
transcranial magnetic stimulation and all that.
yeah, well, my dad had a traumatic brain injury growing up. My dad fell off a 3-story roof and landed on a bed of concrete. The only reason he was alive was because the wooden step that his head hit. So, I joined the military to get the hell away from my family, to get
Oh,
away from my parents and from a pretty negative upbringing. Because anybody who has been brought up by someone who has a serious traumatic brain injury can attest to this. It is not fun. You deal with a ton of emotional disturbances, there's cognitive lags. Trying to reason with somebody who has a brain injury, especially a significant one, can be very, very challenging. And my dad was the emotional equivalent of a 15-year-old. He would throw my head through a wall, anytime he didn't like anything that I had to say. Luckily, we've been able to fix his brain since then, but I just wanted to get the hell out and get
yeah.
away from my current circumstances. I think the military is such a good option for, kids like me who were in a lower income bracket, didn't have a lot of prospects, lived in kind of a shit town in Spokane, Washington, and just needed to get the hell out. So that's what motivated me to go into the Army in the first place. And I walked into the recruiter, a little skinny high school kid, and I was like, "Oh, I want to be an airborne ranger. Oh, it's going to be just like Call of Duty. We're just going to go kill bad guys in the name of America. It's going to be great." And, um,
Oh, yeah.
very quickly I realized that that was not actually what I wanted to do. So I went and took the ASVAB,
Mm,
the aptitude test that you have to
right.
take to get into the military,
Yeah.
and scored pretty high. And so the recruiter was like, "Hey man, I know you said you wanted to be an airborne ranger, but like you might be, your IQ's up here, and that career feels right about here. That's bad." He's like, "Why don't we look at some other options? These other options might have bonuses." And I was like, "Oh, I like money."
Yeah.
And so he showed me a couple of videos, and the first one was it was military counterintelligence, and the video was just a bunch of nerds in a tent,
Yeah.
like a like. I was like, "Yeah, I'm good on that. That does not." I was like, "That's not the level of sex appeal I'm looking for here." And then the second video he showed me, it was like opens up with this explosion. There's a dude in a bomb suit walking down on something. He's got a robot, and I was like, "Okay, you had me at robots, man. I'm so in." He's like, well,
How
just
the
so happens.
recruiters get you, right? And
Oh,
then you do it, and it's a bunch of hurry up and wait and paperwork. Because I was an ex-military spouse, and I was like, yeah, this is
it's not
fun
as
issue thing.
glamorous as it sounds. Oh yeah, I
No,
was like,
no.
oh yeah, it's got a $40,000 signing bonus. I was like, $40,000, like, you want me to do a
No, oh
backflip
my
right
God.
now?
When you're
Let's go.
17, oh, that's more
Oh
money than
yeah,
you've ever seen. Okay,
yeah, it's
so
more money than you could ever dream of. You
oh,
didn't mention that you have to pass the hardest school in the hardest academic school in the Department of Defense to get in, though.
oh. But you did it. You did it, and now
Did
you're
it?
here treating this. So let's talk about that. So it's what you're
Yeah,
doing is cutting edge, right? Because and we deal with a lot of clinics who are doing this. They've moved away or they're trying to move away into cash pay models because insurance is most insurers are practicing a license without being a doctor. What they're doing is
totally.
illegal, right? And we all know it. They're basically approving and denying people. It's some poke behind a desk who's worried about getting fired. And at the end of the day, they get, they want to, deny people. In fact, uh, it's so funny that right now there's a lawsuit against United Healthcare by the shareholders because after their CEO was killed, it came to light that they were required and they were denying claims that they were not supposed to deny. People had paid for it, it was legal, and they were denying them. So they started, accepting legitimized, claims according to the contracts that their customers signed, and now the shareholders are trying to sue them for it because the shareholders lost money. I mean, that entire scenario is so unbelievable and horrible that now, we have to, as entrepreneurs, as ethical people on this world, we have to fight back because people can get fixed with a lot of things, which, how they get
Oh
fixed.
yeah,
So talk to me a little bit about that. So, for
yeah,
some of the people that are in healthcare that don't understand how this works, you're working in ketamine and transcranial
yeah.
magnetic stimulation. Tell me a little bit about that program and how that works.
Well, I want to, I do want to take a step back and just talk
Okay.
about that for that shareholder piece. Like this goes back to the early 1900s, Ford versus Dodge. What is the nature of business? Henry Ford wanted to create cars en masse for the people to uplift our society. That was one of his main driving forces. And the Dodge brothers were shareholders in his company. They had invested money into Ford Motor Company, and they were like, "Hey, whoa, whoa, whoa! You have a fiduciary duty to us as shareholders to make us profits. That's the whole reason this relationship exists between an investor and an investee." And I think we need to take a look under the hood of how the incentives are aligned here. Because you're right, it's
Absolutely.
not in United Healthcare, Cigna, Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's not in their interest to allow money to come back out the door. So we need to take apart this system. And I'm not saying that I have a perfect answer here, but really lay out the incentives and restructure incentives so that we can have a win-win scenario. And
Yeah, I
I
think the
don't,
more that we talk about it and bring it to the light and have people speak about it, there's this great lie that, well, the poors just don't have any financial literacy. So that's why the poors want this or they want that or they just don't understand how things work. And I think one of the things that Wall Street bets put to the
yeah.
forefront is that, oh yeah, we do. We understand exactly how it works. And even when we beat you at your own game, instead of taking the loss, you bail out the people who lost because the system is rigged against us, which is exactly what happened. Right. And
Hmm.
so the more that we need to talk about our outrage about things like that, our outrage of what's happening with this. I mean, the government now is suing the largest insurers plus the largest brokerages. So 2 weeks ago, because they found out that the largest insurers were giving kickbacks to the brokers that were illegally selling senior citizen Americans Medicare Advantage programs that were not in their best interest and basically lying to them so they could get huge, we're talking millions upon millions of dollars worth of bonuses. That money could have gone straight to healthcare. So there
Yeah.
is this middleman taking away the money so that people can't get where they're at. But back, let's
Yeah.
let's go back to that. So in the space that you're in right now, what you're doing is pretty cutting edge. And with cutting edge therapies, with any of the clinics that we do, when you're doing cash based, pretty much you're doing something that's cutting edge. Insurance is not going to pay for it, but you have an actual outcome that you can take someone suffering. They have a unique problem. You're uniquely conditioned to solve it, and you can take them to that. So talk a little bit about how it is in your marketing strategy, I guess, or how you're able to get people down a little bit down your funnel, because
Yeah.
they're preconceived with drugs. I need pills, right? That's what every legit insurance company is telling them they need, or the VA is telling them they need. And you're like, no, I can actually get you well. Tell me about how that works in your sphere.
Yeah, so we have a hybrid model, so we're cash pay and insurance pay depending on which modality that our clients are using. So we like to be able to break it up. The one of the big driving forces for us, we work with a ton of veterans and first responders. That's really our niche. So how we've been able to get patients in the door is by partnering with state programs that help fund mental health care for veterans and first responders. Like the Path for EMS program here in Colorado provides a once a year stipend of $1,850 per individual with an EMT or a paramedic license.
Oh,
So we
wow.
are the only ketamine clinic in the state that is a part of that program. So we're able to deliver that at a much lower cost and really take that barrier of entry down, because that's one of the biggest gripes with cash pay practices. People come in and they're like, "Hey, I want to use my insurance. I'm already paying into this. Is there any way that I can make this work?" And unfortunately, that's just not the case, especially with some of these therapies that work quite well. Hyperbaric, great example. The studies are in. It works, especially when you do it consecutively and you add in proper dietary supplementation and ways to upregulate the prefrontal cortex. We can get results for people that they've never been able to get for, a fraction of the cost that they would pay somewhere else, even when we're counting in copays. So it is playing this dance quite a bit with how much someone can afford to pay, really how badly they want the outcome, and the social pressure from the insurance company and that traditional medical model. So we found that blending the two been pretty has been pretty good for us.
Do you credit that all to the fact that you're able to plug into these government programs, or is it what else can you do for the people who are like, there's no
Mhm.
government programs for what we're doing? How would they be able to do that? Do you know?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just
so
curious.
another place that we get a decent number of patients is like nonprofits that fund veteran mental health.
Mm,
That's So if we have someone who can't afford to pay, let's say they're a bomb tech, like we partner with the EOD Wounded Warrior Foundation and the Wounded Warrior Foundation to help subsidize those costs. Because a lot of times, if we have a patient who has a traumatic brain injury, by the time they get to us, their life is usually pretty shambled. They're having issues with their relationships, if not like in the throes of a divorce, or they're completely financially tapped because they haven't been able to hold gainful employment because of their brain injury.
that's interesting. And you, but I like that, and I hope that our clinic owners are listening to it, because even if you're not in this sphere, I want you to understand the creative thinking that went behind. Let's just ask. Let's just see. So, as a consultant and coach that's working with all different types of clinic, from weight loss to let's get rid of Botox, or like, let's get some Botox in, or whatever you're doing, right, in your practice to help people get something that's going to make them feel better. Sometimes, for this, it's, a brain injury. They literally can't function. Other people, it's I stopped going out because they hate the way I look. Either way, people are being affected in a serious way, and they want to invest some money to do it. And some of these people don't have the funds, but they have the will, right? So
Hmm.
when I'm talking about creatively. I want people to listen to what Sam is talking about here, because those opportunities just didn't, someone didn't call him in the middle of the night and say, "Oh, hey, Sam, don't forget to call these five different things." He had to think about it and brainstorm about it and say, where else can I go? Right? Because you can't always depend, and in some cases, you can't do even advertising. Right? So you
Yeah.
have to get creative and you have to network. But wherever there is a need, a desperate need, there are going to be all these people that are searching in the same way. So once you
Mhm.
start talking, you can get connected. Can you give me some examples of that so they can get some ways of they can think more creatively for, being able to branch out like you did?
Yeah, I think you made a really good point there. If there are people suffering, if there's a population suffering, there are nonprofits that are trying to move the needle forward. There are always people who have come out the other side and are trying to move that needle forward. So, kind of sticking with, the veteran example, there are a number of nonprofits that will help pay for hyperbaric oxygen therapy for veterans. It's just a matter of reaching out and saying, "Hey, I have this product. It serves who you're trying to serve. Can we become a service partner for you? We'll give you a 10% discount or whatever you can afford on our services so you can attract those nonprofit dollars in." Because most of the time, these are people like you and me who want to help, so they're raising money and then they're trying to deploy funds towards helping their population. So nonprofits, any of those state programs, it's really just a matter of getting on Perplexity. And for anybody who doesn't know, Perplexity.ai has really made Google obsolete when it comes to making like these searches. So normally going into Google, you would have to go through a giant list of whoever's paid to be on, the top of your ad set. With the advent of generative AI and generative AI tied to a search model, you can go in and say, "Hey, here's my business, function as a research assistant, make me a list of the top 10 nonprofits, both in my area and nationally, that pay for insert service here. Make me a list, make me a, per,
Perplexity.ai?
yeah, perplexity.ai.
I haven't
Um,
even heard of that. And I've been
oh
all
shit,
about
Jen.
AI. Yeah,
Oh,
even
this
I've been,
is,
and
this
I
is
pay
better.
for a really
It's,
great AI right now, but perplexity.ai. See, I was,
mhm.
I was just talking to somebody about something like this and I didn't know about it. I am so glad you brought that up. We're going to make sure to, for Danny, if you're listening, that's our podcast manager, please like bold this and we'll put this in our handouts on school for that. No, that's amazing because I'm going to tell you for all of our dentists that are listening, there are tons of nonprofits that help people with dental care. There are a
Oh yeah.
lot of people that are like, no, straight teeth, should be a right that everybody gets now because not having good dental care can stop you from having jobs. You won't get hired. There are a lot of positions they won't even put you in. And now there are tons of resources for that. I say tons, maybe not tons in your area, but there are some for that. I know that there are, as well as other things. If people have been harmed, if they've got scarring or different things that they feel that stop them. There's even a nonprofit that helps people with tattoo removal, and they specialize in people who were former criminals who want to get those tattoos so they can have second chance. It's like a type of second chance charity. And I know of a dermatologist who had no idea and she got in there, but it helps all sorts of tattoo removals for people who can't get jobs or anything else, especially if it involves anything on the face, the neck, or your hands that's, can't be easily covered up that's preventing people. So that is really interesting. Perplexity.ai. Thank you for that. That's a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
one.
Well, it's, what clinic owners now really need to understand is that if you have these difficult to answer questions like, "Hey, how do I find a nonprofit that'll fund my XYZ protocol or patients?" Like, there are tools to get those questions answered very rapidly and iterate very quickly.
Oh, that is
And
good.
I did want to give you a shout out, Jen. So I actually started doing your mastermind. So we're in the next couple weeks I'm gonna grind out grind out all those lessons. And I'd love to come back on and tell you how it went. So right now we're sitting, our clinic's been around for 3.5 years. We're sitting at about 1.3 million a year. And we're looking to grow that. So I'm very interested in, what the lessons you guys have learned around creating and sustaining a functional cash pay practice.
Well, we've got it all in our mastermind, which, if you're listening to us already, you just go to our school and you can get a free to try for our mastermind. Of course, we also have our one-on-one, and then we also have the big accelerator program, which I also lead up. Tracy and I take people through a 4 month. It's pretty grueling. I'm going to tell you, it's bomb technician level grueling, but it works. And then we do,
I don't know
we
about that, Jen. I
I
don't know
don't
about that.
know. I've been told I was pretty harsh, but at the end of the day, getting people to 2 to 10x their business is the way we need to do. What our goal is, right? If you're
Yep.
willing to do it. So let's go back to. I'm really excited that you're in the mastermind. I think you guys are going to do great things, especially since you're expansive. So for anyone who's listening, it's that expansive sort of mindset, and that makes me want to ask: do you feel like ketamine therapy helped you get to that
Oh,
expansive mindset?
absolutely.
Tell me a
Absolutely.
little bit about how that works. I'm very fascinated
Yeah.
with it. I do know veterans. I my love of
Yeah.
my life is a veteran. So those things really, I'm
Yeah.
really interested in how they can transform, people that are struggling.
Well, here, let me just kind of lay it out real quick,
Mhm.
how this whole program works and why it works. So, we do a combination of ketamine infusion therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, transcranial magnetic stimulation, and culturally competent psychotherapy. So, going back to the first one, why do we do ketamine? Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic that has broad treatment applications across the mental health space. One of the biggest applications is in the treatment of depression, anxiety, PTSD, and TBI because ketamine does two really important things. The first one is it resets your brain bioelectrically. It is like control alt delete for your brain. That's one of the reasons it's so effective. It's between 70 to 80% effective at reducing depression and anxiety symptoms within only a few treatments. So it also downregulates inflammation and it increases neuroplasticity. So it helps your neurons branch out and create new connections. But what's really important there is the downregulation and inflammation. Anytime we're talking about those four horsemen, depression, anxiety, PTSD, and traumatic brain injury, something that nobody in psychiatry talks about is how inflamed your brain gets. These issues, these conditions are highly, highly, highly inflammatory to the brain. And the blood vessels in your prefrontal cortex, your executive functioning center, are very, very small. So we're relying on a red blood cell to deliver oxygen throughout the brain, right? So that we can function. When there's enough inflammation, those blood vessels get shunted off. Our tissues can no longer receive oxygen. They switch over from their normal method of energy creation called cellular respiration to what's called anaerobic glycolysis. That's a fermentation process that uses glucose to make energy, and that's how cancer cells make energy. So shunt off blood flow, all of a sudden you're taking a switch over, your cells are taking a switch over to this anaerobic glycolysis process that causes a lot more inflammation. This is one of the reasons that people remain treatment resistant. So, ketamine on the front end, we use it to take that inflammation down. We usually see our patients report feeling immediately better within 2 to 3 infusions, which can happen in about a week. So, boom, we're getting them that symptom relief, getting that buy-in, and then we have the hyperbaric oxygen therapy that we use to increase the amount of oxygen in our bloodstream, in our blood plasma, and that bathes the brain in oxygen. So now, all of a sudden, your cells have a plethora of energy because oxygen is the last ingredient needed for cellular respiration, for our cells to breathe. So, boom, now you've got all this oxygen, the inflammation is downregulated, and then you throw in culturally competent talk therapy with transcranial magnetic stimulation. And anyone who's not familiar with TMS, quick primer on it. It's MRI technology. So we pass electricity through an MRI coil that creates a magnetic field. We take that coil, we stick it on your head, and we can use that magnetic field to upregulate the density of neurons in a specific area of the brain, wherever we're treating. So when we use all these together, we're taking inflammation down, we're increasing neuroplasticity, and then we're giving that neuroplasticity a target, a vector, so that we can increase the functionality of your executive functioning centers. And when we do that, what we've seen is patients tend to get better, like feel remarkably better and have a reach full symptom remission in 14 to 17 days.
That's incredible. Well, I can't wait to hear more about it. And I also am going to talk to you in the mastermind, because there's incredible potential for you to be able to expand these locations. You know, I mean, this should be available. If your patients are seeing those types of results and you're able to get people back to living their life fully, then we need to be doing that everywhere, I think. I don't know. I would be happy to be a big advocate about this, just because I feel as mission driven with this in some ways in my own personal, experience working with veterans too. Well, we're here already at the end. So I can't believe it just went so fast. Please, Sam. So we've been talking to Sam Peterson. Let people know how they can find you.
Yeah, so the best way to find us is check out our website, mindspadenver.com, or shoot us an email, info@mindspadenver.com. And all the information's on the website. We have a ton of blog posts explaining how each one of these treatments work and kind of our treatment methodology. So if you're interested, we work with just about every major insurance carrier, and we're here in the Denver area.
Well, that's amazing. And guys, remember, go to superclinicproject.com. Be sure to like, comment, follow, share, and please give us a 5-star review. It's how we're able to get the incredible guests like Sam onto the show. Now, if you want freebies with us, we're going to have a lot of extra stuff. Just go to our free school. So you go to superclinicproject.com. Click on school and you'll get right to Sam anyway. So however you choose to find him, we make it easy for you. And I hope you guys have a Super Clinic Project week.
You've been listening to the Super Clinic Project podcast. If you like what you hear, subscribe and stay tuned for further episodes of the Super Clinic Project podcast.